Welcome. Allow yourself to settle and to arrive. We'll begin shortly. Welcome to all those who are just joining us now. Allow yourself this minute to settle and to arrive. We will begin shortly. Thank you. Okay. Welcome. You are joining the Institute for Holiness, Kehilat Mussar, during our Awakening Torah Mussar Mindfulness, our program that we offer weekly at 3 p.m. or 1500 Eastern Standard Time, located on the eastern seaboard of the United States and Canada and elsewhere down in South America. We are delighted that you have taken the time to join us. I am Rabbi Chasya Uriel Steinbauer, the founder and director of Kehilat Mussar, the Institute for Holiness, the Mussar community. We engage in Mussar mindfulness practice and learning, and in particular, we look at the weekly Torah portion of the Hebrew Bible that we have the custom as Jews to study the Torah. It's broken up in different parshiot, sections, portions over the year. And this week we are just had read on Shabbat and had studied and prepared for Vayeshev. And we study it together as a community, now coming together on Sunday, the day after, giving you the opportunity to study this and to listen to it be lain and read on Shabbat. So I'm grateful that you've taken the time to strengthen your practice, to learn with us and from us, to be here together as community. It is key to our learning and to take refuge together. Before we begin our learning, we always begin with our kavanah, our intention for today's learning and practice. I'm going to share screen with you. For those of you joining us through audio after the effect, this is located on our website during the weekly blog at www.kehilatmussar.com. And as I said, we are live on Zoom right now, on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Before us is the kavanah. I'm going to share just the first and the third. That is what I want us to kind of hold and cover today, as we do every week. So before doing acts of caring for the self, which we are doing right now, a radical act of self-care, to spend this at least half hour together learning and practicing, and God willing, growing together. We say the following: this is something I am doing to strengthen my own soul in order to be of benefit to others in the future. So allow that to sink in. And then we move to the final one, as this is also an act that we're doing to strengthen our relationship with God, with the divine. This is something that I am doing to strengthen my relationship with the Creator, so that I can be a better conduit of God's good to others when they need me. Our practice has a purpose. As I always like to say, that we Jews, have a mission statement in this world based on Rabbi Shimon Shkop's work in Sharei Yosher, where he says that our job is to bring God's good to others, but even more than that, that it should be our foundational impulse of when we first arrive in the morning, when we get out of bed, when we wake up, when we're saying our Modeh or Modani, thank you God for returning my soul to me, that our first desire shall be that we bring benefit to others. And if we think about framing all of our learning and practice around that, think of all the harm and suffering we would relieve through our behavior, that we would put ourselves in alignment with Torah, with the Dharma, to be the best versions of ourselves. And that is what we set to do today. We begin with Vayeshev. Now, I had prefaced earlier that in the previous parsha on when Avraham is called the Akedat Yitzhak, when he's about to slaughter his son, based on being commanded by God, that it was going to be a very difficult session for us. It would be one that would try us, that would perhaps trigger states of either delusion or aversion, of wanting things to be different than what they were. And so that we have to practice a lot of self-compassion. I'm going to repeat that here. This is a tough parsha. This is, for me, one of the, if not the, it is the lowest point in my people's, my ancestors, our ancestors' behavior. And we'll shortly learn if you haven't studied the parsha. So I want to extend that this is, let's hold each other, let's hold ourselves in compassion as we move through this. And be aware of the breath, be aware of the felt sense of the body as we learn this. We're here together, we're moving forward. Yaakov, who we had just intimately looked at his teshuvah and growth last week, finally settles in Hebron with his 12 sons, and I'm sure many daughters, at least Dinah. And unfortunately, he favors one of the sons, Yosef, who is 17 years old at the time. And the other brothers' response, their reaction, is one of jealousy. The father loves the child more. Yaakov loves Yosef more. Not only does he love him more, he gives him a gift, called the katonet basim, this beautiful kind of gown coat that causes, again, a reaction. The brothers who choose, in their lack of mindfulness and lack of skills, to react extremely strongly, with even more jealousy, to the point where we're told that they can't say a kind word to their 17-year-old brother, Yosef. Yosef does a number of acts, I'm sure, without necessarily being told, that the father wants these behaviors, one being bringing bad reports about the other brother's behavior. He's actually even sent out by his father to bring a report on the brothers. And then he has these dreams. And in order to understand dreams in this culture back then, they're seen as divine, they're seen as prophecy, as a gift. So on one hand, while we might have this clinging and anger that Yosef seems immature or arrogant or self-centered, that he tells these dreams, on one hand, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt of what else was he supposed to do given the cultural context. If we're going to understand a parsha based on social location, This is seen as prophecy, as a divine gift. Of course, he's going to share what his dreams are and what's happening. But we'll notice soon that some of the commentators, particularly modern commentators, are really disturbed by what they see as his arrogant, selfish behavior. And I just want to comment that just like with Yaakov when he was 15, how he behaved with Esav, and even how, if we have critique for Esav's behavior in the past, when he was 15, we have a 17-year-old here. Let's keep that in mind and offer less judgment, more compassion. So the father really favoring Yosef, right? That's the beginning of this that I want to relate. So we have some very strong modern commentary. We start with, of course, Eli Wiesel, who expresses great frustration at Yaakov's, what he sees as poor parenting. And I quote here, "Surely Jacob was the real culprit. He must have been a bad father, a poor teacher. What an idea to favor one child, give him more gifts, more attention, more love. Did he not know that such behavior would eventually harm the boy he actually wanted to protect?" So we see in this modern commentator and even others very strong, perhaps even clinging, strong reaction to Yaakov's behavior of wanting it to be different than what it was. We might feel that arise in us too, and did when we started studying this parsha, this weekly Torah portion. And then I go on with Naomi Rosenblatt. He should have known better, meaning Yaakov. As a victim of his own father's favoritism, let's remember Yitzhak favored him. Why? No, actually, it's not Yitzhak. Excuse me, I'm mixing up sons. It's his Ima. Okay, Ima. Rivka favors Yaakov, very much so. We're not told why, but she favors him. And it says that he should have known better. As a victim of his own father's favoritism, his father favored his older twin, Esav. We're told because he provided good game, fed him well, essentially. It says Jacob would be expected to be more sensitive to his son's feelings. He, better than anyone, should understand the destructiveness of loving his sons unequally. We can only assume, like many recent widowers, Jacob is too absorbed in his own grief to notice. So she's trying to bring at least some compassion here that Yaakov just lost his favored wife, the wife that he loves more than the other wives in front of everyone, that he'd lost her while she was giving birth to the final son, Benjamin. And so listen, I just want to say, this is Yaakov, who we know is like a one step forward, two steps back. While he does teshuvah and grows, this is someone who favored a wife in front of everybody, in front of her own sister. He loved her more. Even God knew it. Are we really going to expect him not to love another son above the other sons? I just want us to put this into context, that it doesn't surprise me as much as this behavior, because he's not skilled in this set. He's not mindful. This is where we're seeing this behavior, and it does pain us. It pains us to the fact, because we know that these brothers who end up being violent towards Yosef are really angry at their father and his behavior. They're angry at Yaakov, but they can't say that. They can't speak that out. The patriarch is, like, in a sense, like God in some sense in the household, and they cannot speak it, share it, show it. So you have this, in a sense, like this family trauma being perpetuated, being like stuffed. of not really being able to work through what needs to be communicated. So little gets communicated verbally, as we've seen from last parsha. So what happens as we continue in our learning? The brothers develop a great hatred, passionate, full of fire hatred towards Yosef. The kind that consumes, the kind that blinds, the kind that leads to delusion and greed. And we know when we are full of hatred, greed, and delusion, as the Dharma teaches us, it will only lead to harm and suffering. And that is what we witness here. Great, great harm and suffering that will lead to intergenerational trauma and problems, starting with a family unit. And it just didn't start here. We know this. We know this back with Avraham and Yitzhak. And then Yitzhak with his two sons, with Esav and Yaakov. And now Yaakov, perpetuating this lack of awareness, this lack of mindfulness, this lack of wise, rightful, upright decision making and behavior. So what happens? Yosef is sent out by his father to go bring a report on the brothers. He heads off, 17 years old, heads 50 miles north. These children, we think about Yaakov, who was 15, who traveled from Beersheba up to Haran. That is an enormous amount of travel for a teenager. And now we have this other teenager, a 17-year-old, who's going these 50 miles to find his brothers, to gather a report. And when they see him, that greed, that delusion, that hatred, that anger, that fire takes over. They allow it to take over. 9 of them. One of them doesn't. It's Reuven, the eldest, Leah's firstborn son. So right when they see him, the other 9 plot to kill him, to murder him. Reuven hears this and suggests that they instead throw him in a pit, thereby the text teaching us and telling us that he plans to return to retrieve Yosef. Yosef is put in this pit. Now, just to give you a concept here, this isn't just like a small hole. Okay, let's be realistic about this. Let me tell you about this. Okay, so we were taught here that they cast him into a pit. This is chapter 37, Pasuk 24, verse 24. Whenever the word cast, hashalcha, is used, it is meant to describe to a depth of at least 20 cubits. That is to a depth that in halachic terms, in Jewish law terms, is beyond eye view. Yosef therefore becomes invisible when he is thrown into the bore, into the pit. In the fullest sense, he is forgotten by the world. He's forgotten by his brothers who want to forget him. They want him to be erased, to be gone. They think that will relieve them of their own unhealthy midot, unbalanced midot, soul traits, their unhealthy, unwise states. So let's just be realistic here that they had planned to put him in this pit, that he would just die from exposure, from a lack of food and water. What's so horrific about this, we're not even getting to the most horrific part yet, is that one only has to bear in mind, oh, by the way, that last quote was from Aviva Zornberg in her work, The Beginning of Desire. So here we have that one only has to bear in mind that the lack of a proper burial for Yosef was considered to be the supreme dishonor. In order to imagine something of the frenzied intensity of the brothers' hatred for Yosef, they've decided to go absolutely against their tradition, what they consider most honorable, and not offer him a proper burial. They're going to just leave him to disappear. to die in the born. Okay? What happens next is what is the most horrific segment of this, is that they sit down to eat a meal. Now, Reuven is not there. We imagine it's the 9 other brothers. But let me just tell you the depravity of this act. We're well aware that when someone gets stripped, they're stripping them. They're trying to strip them of who they are, and that's what they did to Yosef, before throwing him in the pit. Stripped him of his katonet basim, that beautiful coat that his Abba, his father, gave him. And to sit down and eat is beyond. It's the lowest point in the Torah, the saddest line in the whole Torah, but absolute low point. So I have nothing more to say about it other than that I recognize the pain that carries. I recognize that we carry this knowledge and this story, that our ancestors behaved this way. And we're very sensitive to it today, that when we see if people are stripped and humiliated and treated with shame and a lack of proper honor, of burial, of others who may eat or do joyful acts while someone is suffering, we bear witness to that as Jews, as we do today, because of that intergenerational trauma, because of this beginning of our ancestors, this story. So there's obviously so much more to say about this, and I will share more in the written blog later this week, that you can see more of my thoughts on this parsha, because it is so large and has so much to say. But I want us to be aware when we're studying this, what triggers us, what comes up for us. Is it the favoring of a child? Is it wishing that Yaakov, his behavior was different, that he didn't favor one child or the other, that he knew better because of his own personal experience with this? Where is it the felt sense in the body of this continuation of familial suffering, the threatened violence of one brother or more attempting to, or threatening to, or planning to murder the other brother? I just want to allow us to really begin to recognize and allow what is arising for us right here in the present moment, as we study these words and get into what is really the source of the harm and suffering, and what we could learn from this. I will say that there is some growth in Yosef from the 17-year-old later in the Parsha that you can read in the blog later on, that really shows that he's able to do some form of internal teshuvah, of finally recognizing and gaining emotional intelligence, recognizing what's on the face of others, and if and when he should share. We're going to hold all this in mind as we work through this greed, hatred, and delusion. And we're going to sit with it. We're going to move into our sitting practice now. So again, I always start off that if you're someone who lives with chronic pain or any discomfort, feel free to lie down with eyes open so you remain awake and alert. You may stand with your body next to a chair to hold you, to ground you. And for those of us either in a sitting meditation cushion like a zafu, or in a chair, if you are in a chair, ground your feet. I want you to feel the earth holding you. At any time, if you feel that this is too much for you, pull yourself out, bring yourself to the present moment, open your eyes, feel free to look at what's around you, to center, to arrive, to settle. So we begin by sitting in an upright, alert position, not stiff, comfortable. You may allow your hands to rest on your lap or in the middle, or if you're really feeling that you need some love and compassion right now, like I do. Great chesed and grace. We need loving kindness and chen, grace from God right now to hold us and carry us through this. Shut your eyes if you feel safe or lower your gaze, and we begin with 3 deep cleansing breaths. In breath awareness, out breath release. In breath, I am awake. Out breath, compassion. Allow your breath to settle. No need to force or control it. So we use our breath generally as an anchor. And what does it mean to use the breath as an anchor? It means that it is what holds you to the present moment. It's what carries you. And you have to remember the breath, the nishama, is a gift from God, tied to the neshama, the soul. They share the same shoresh, the same root. So for some of us, it's too difficult to use the breath as an anchor. Perhaps it's due to asthma or some other trauma, perhaps illness, survivors of COVID. If that is the case, you may use another anchor. It could be sensations in the body, whatever arises. Could be sounds that you hear. The anchor is to keep you in the present moment if you can keep your attention on that anchor. And I say if, because that is the practice of mindfulness meditation, of insight meditation, of vipassana, that our thoughts will move, sometimes called monkey brain, right? We might be fantasizing of something in the future, thinking about, obsessing about something in the past. The minute we awaken to that travel with our thoughts, we bring ourselves back to the present moment. We bring ourselves back to our anchor. From time to time, I will go silent to allow moments of reflection. You may trust that I will come back again with my voice and guidance. So as you recall this parsha and everything that comes with it, everything it brings, notice what arises for you in your body. What is the felt sense? And if you are experiencing strong emotions, pleasant or unpleasant or neutral, notice the felt sense of those emotions in the body. Perhaps it's the feeling of tears that want to explode behind your closed eyelids. Perhaps it is the tightness of your throat, the deep bore, the pit in your stomach as you attempt to hold Yosef, immature, unwise, 17. Notice what is here for us right here and right now. Did you notice there was any clinging or aversion to your encounter with your ancestors? Did you want things to be different than what they were? Was there any challenge in accepting things as they were, accepting them? By this point, it feels much larger than just a father to his son, of that patriarchal, paternal violence and harm and suffering that we receive, that we inherit as our tradition. We've now moved from that kind of singular relationship to that of a group, a brood, a whole set of brothers together. Nine. And it feels communal. It feels that we carry their sin, their impurity, their lack of mindfulness, their greed, their hate, their delusion. We bear the burden of this as we inherit our ancestors and this intergenerational trauma passed down. And we begin to move into nurturing and non-identification. What would it mean for us here right now in our Vad, in our Sangha, in our community to forgive, to carry this, to heal, to move towards wholeness over time? And if you feel that this is larger than you, you are quite right. It is. We'll bow our heads and honor God in our practice. Honor our ancestors. Honor our own practice of compassion. To practice this savlanut, this patience in the Mussar tradition of bearing the burden, that we may carry each other. That may all beings be safe. May we be safe. May all beings be free from harm. May we be free from harm. We move into silent meditation, and I will ring the bells when it's time to go up, to come up, to join us in between heaven and earth as we will reunite together on this virtual practice, this plane together as we're united all over the world right now. Our practice is one of compassion, of rachamim. You may place your hand wherever you need nurturing on your body right now. If you notice any pain or tension, unpleasant sensation in the body, honor it. Put your loving, gentle hand there. Notice if there's been a shift for you from when we started this practice to right now. Is there an opening, a release? Breathing in love, breathing out acceptance. We move into 2 more minutes of silence. And when you are ready, gently and slowly open your eyes to join us. Thank you for your practice. Thank you for committing to your kavanah, your intention to do this self-care, to strengthen your relationship with yourself and with the divine, so that we and you can be of service to others, bringing God's good. Tonight is the first night of Chanukah, which means dedication, rededication. And if you have been feeling weak or tired as we enter into these days of more and more darkness and generally the cold, at least in the northern hemisphere, excuse me for all you who are in the south and have a different experience, but that shift really affects sometimes our practice. And so this is our opportunity, our Hizdamnut right now, to rededicate, commit to our Vad, our Sangha, our community, taking refuge in God and the Dharma and the Buddha, for us to be together, to practice and learn, to apply such a meaningful, foundational text, the Torah, in our souls and in our ancestors and our tradition, for us to really study this and to look, what can I learn from this? How can I grow? So I thank you. I thank you also for your donations. This is a free will offering on the behalf of the Institute. And for us to continue to offer these, we rely on your truma, on your dana, and your donations. So please give, especially during this holiday season. You may give by being in touch with us at kehilatmussar@gmail.com. You may give at PayPal to chasyauriel@gmail.com. I am Rabbi Chasya Uriel Steinbauer. You may give on Insight Timer. Just be in touch with us or visit us on our website. If these teachings are important to you, foundational to your life and practice, show it by committing and by giving. We accept sponsorships in memory and honor of someone. You may reach out for that also. So again, thank you for joining today to study Vayeshev together, to commit to our practice. I thank you, and I look forward to seeing you and being with you next week, B'ezrat Hashem, and we'll still be in Chanukah, which is quite a blessing. Sending you all peace, shalom, shalom, shalom. Good night, Chag Sameach.